Words are blades sharper than steel, but unlike swords, they cut without sound. A sentence leaves the mouth light as air, yet when reflected back, it becomes a weapon heavy enough to break kings. The greatest downfalls in history were not born from fists or armies, but from careless words left unguarded. A leader once commanded loyalty with his voice, yet years later, that same voice betrayed him. His promise echoed back, twisted into a chain he could not escape. His strength collapsed, not from enemies at the gate, but from his own speech turned against him. Here lies the paradox. The strong may guard their bodies, their riches, their secrets, but few guard their words. And it is here, in language, that the silent trap is set. This is not mere manipulation, it is psychological warfare, a philosophy of unseen dominance. We are taught to believe that words protect us, that if we can explain ourselves, defend our ideas, and speak clearly, we will be understood and respected. Yet the opposite is often true. Words do not shield us, they expose us. Every sentence we speak carries a trace of ourselves, like fingerprints left on glass. We think we are hiding behind a mask of language, but masks always crack. Consider how people slip when they are nervous. They over-explain. They contradict themselves. They reveal what they swore they would never say, not by accident, but by the pressure of silence and the hunger to be heard. This is the paradox of speech. The more you talk, the more you bleed. The tongue is not a weapon of control. It is a confession waiting to happen. Every person carries what could be called a linguistic fingerprint. The choice of words, the rhythm, the hesitation. Each pattern reveals a hidden truth. Some betray fear, some show arrogance, others whisper insecurity. You don't need a lie detector. The language itself is the detector. People rarely notice their own leaks, but a careful listener will. And when those leaks are collected, they become ammunition more powerful than any blade. Most people believe that silence is weakness, and speech is power. They think being vocal keeps them safe. But in reality, it is silence that protects, and speech that enslaves. The more you speak, the more control you give away. A manipulator does not need to attack you directly. He only needs to wait, letting your words pile up until you bury yourself in them. This is the hidden enemy. Not the lies told to us by others, but the blindness we carry within ourselves. We do not realize that every word spoken is a small surrender. We think speech builds walls, but it builds windows, and through those windows others can see directly into our fears, our motives, and our weaknesses. History is full of examples. A king promises forever peace, but when war comes, his own words are thrown against him. A friend swears loyalty, but in anger speaks words that cannot be taken back. A lover vows trust, then lets a single careless phrase reveal betrayal. In every case, downfall comes not from outside attacks, but from words turned inward. The brutal truth is this: your greatest weakness is not silence. It's speaking without control. Every time you let words spill without calculation, you hand someone else the map to your mind. And once they have that map, they can walk straight into your defenses and dismantle you from within. From childhood, we are told that honesty is the highest virtue. Parents, teachers, leaders, and even lovers whisper the same lesson. Speak your truth. Be transparent. Honesty builds trust. Sounds noble. Sounds pure. And yet, in the battlefield of human power, it is the most dangerous lie you could ever believe. Honesty does not always free you, it often enslaves you. Every truth you speak becomes evidence, a weapon waiting to be picked up by the wrong hands. Imagine a negotiator who admits he is desperate. He believes that showing vulnerability will earn compassion. But instead, the other side sees his need and tightens the grip, demanding more because they now hold the leverage. His truth was not a bridge to trust. It was a chain around his neck. This is the harsh reality. In the wrong context, truth becomes confession, and confession becomes weakness. A rival, a manipulator, a competitor, none of them are obligated to honor your honesty. They will twist it, frame it, and use it until you are trapped by the very words you thought would protect you. Consider history. Leaders who promised never to betray their people were the first to be crucified by those promises when circumstances changed. A general who admits doubt in private may soon find that doubt whispered in every corner of his army. A partner who reveals every insecurity hands over the exact script of how to be destroyed in an argument. In each case, honesty was not salvation. It was exposure. Society sells honesty as virtue because it keeps the masses controllable. If everyone is convinced to pour out their secrets, to confess their fears, then power belongs to the ones who stay silent. The rulers, the manipulators, the strategists, they do not reveal everything. They study what others reveal. That is why they lead while others follow. The paradox is brutal. Hiding your truth may appear dishonest, but it keeps you free. Speaking it may feel righteous, but it binds you tighter to the will of others. Honesty is not a universal good. It is a tool. In the hands of the wise, it is used sparingly. In the hands of the naive, it becomes self-destruction. Your truth in the wrong ears becomes your cage. Every word of sincerity can be twisted into mockery. Every confession turned into leverage. Every open heart into an open wound. The world may praise the beauty of honesty, but the strategist knows. Beauty is often a mask for danger. The strong do not rush to reveal themselves. They understand that silence is not deceit, it is defense. Honesty can be power, but only when released with precision, at the right moment, and to the right person. Until then, it must remain hidden, guarded like treasure. For once it leaves your lips, it no longer belongs to you. Power is rarely in the mouth of the one who speaks. It hides in the silence of the one who listens. The world teaches us to chase attention, to speak louder, to explain more. But the strategist knows a darker truth. The person who controls the silence controls the battlefield. Enter the archetype of the shadow listener, the one who speaks little yet holds the sharpest advantage. They allow others to fill the empty space, and in that space people reveal more than they intend. Psychology has proven it. Humans despise silence. We rush to cover it, to explain ourselves, to keep the air filled. In doing so, we leak truths, expose fears, and offer weapons freely into the hands of whoever listens closely enough to collect them. Picture a negotiator who says almost nothing. Across the table, his rival grows uneasy, rambling to fill the void. In the rush to talk, he confesses details, contradictions, even hidden desperation. By the end, he has handed over every card without realizing it. The quiet man wins not by force, but by patience. His silence was not emptiness. It was a trap. This is the predator's ear. It does not interrupt. It does not argue. It simply waits. And in waiting, it sharpens itself, taking every fragment of speech and fitting it into a larger picture of weakness. The listener becomes the hunter, while the speaker becomes prey to his own words. Contrast defines the lesson. The weak speak to be heard, desperate for validation, comfort, or recognition. They mistake noise for influence. The strong remain silent, listening not for entertainment, but for openings. Every slip, every contradiction, every nervous laugh becomes a weapon. And when they finally choose to speak, their words strike with the precision of a blade, because they were forged from everything the other has already revealed. The greatest manipulators, leaders, and tacticians are rarely the loudest in the room. They are the ones who make others comfortable enough to talk endlessly. They nod, they give minimal responses, they hold the silence just long enough for the truth to spill. To the untrained, this seems like passivity. To the strategist, it is absolute control. Listening, when weaponized, transforms silence into dominance. It shifts the battlefield entirely. The speaker feels powerful, but the listener is the one gathering ammunition, stacking evidence, weaving a web. And when the time comes, it is the quiet one who decides when to tighten the noose. Power, then, is not in constant expression but in disciplined restraint. The world belongs not to those who talk the most, but to those who master the art of listening like a predator in the shadows, silent, patient, and deadly. There is a trap so subtle, most never notice it until it's too late. It requires no argument, no raised voice, no clever speech. It is the art of echoing, repeating a person's own words back to them until those words become the rope they use to hang themselves. Here is how it works. When someone makes a claim, you mirror it back with calm precision. So you're saying, then silence. Instinctively, they feel the need to clarify, to explain, to add details. And in that rush to fill the air, they overexpose themselves. They reveal contradictions, doubts, and hidden motives they never meant to share. The trap is invisible because it doesn't feel like confrontation. It feels like conversation. Humans despise ambiguity. When they sense their words might be misunderstood, they scramble to fix the gap. This compulsion is their weakness. By echoing their statement, you create that gap, and their own psychology forces them to speak further. Each clarification is another thread in the net you are weaving. They believe they are strengthening their argument, but they are only entangling themselves. Consider a politician declaring, "I will never raise taxes." Echo it back, "Never raise taxes?" Suddenly the politician feels compelled to explain exceptions, conditions, or hidden intentions. In clarifying, he admits the possibility he tried to deny. His own words become evidence against him. Or think of a relationship. Someone insists, "I don't care what you do." Mirror it gently, "You don't care." Silence. Then comes the flood. "Well, I do care about certain things. Actually, it bothers me when..." And just like that, the truth spills. The brilliance of the echo lies in its simplicity. It does not attack, it does not accuse, it merely reflects. Yet in reflection, it distorts, forcing the other person to wrestle with their own contradictions. And because the words are theirs, not yours, they cannot escape them. You did not plant the rope, you only handed it back. They chose to tighten the knot. This tactic is why interrogators, negotiators, and manipulators alike thrive. They don't win by arguing harder, they win by echoing smarter. The weak believe power comes from speaking more. The strong know that power comes from speaking less, and letting the other person speak themselves into ruin. Echoing is the shadow's voice. It is soft, unthreatening, almost invisible. But within that echo hides the most brutal weapon of psychological warfare, the ability to make someone build their own prison. In the end, the echo is not your weapon, it is theirs. You simply return their words, and watch as they twist, clarify, contradict, and finally collapse under the weight of their own voice. There is no weapon sharper than a person's own memory turned against them. Most people speak as though words dissolve the moment they leave their mouths. They forget promises, denials, and declarations, believing their past has vanished with the sound. But the manipulator does not forget. He collects words like blades, polishing them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This is the contradiction trap, the art of placing someone's words against themselves. You do not need to invent lies or force confessions. All you need is patience, memory, and timing. When the right moment comes, you simply lay one statement beside the other, and the contradiction speaks louder than any accusation. Picture a leader who once swore, "We will never raise taxes." Months later, he announces, "Taxes must go up for the good of the people." On their own, each statement could stand, but together they are poison. By aligning them side by side, you reveal betrayal without ever lifting your voice. He cannot fight you because the weapon is not your words, it is his. This trap works because humans crave consistency. When we sense contradiction, trust shatters instantly. The manipulator understands this and does not waste energy on emotional outbursts. He does not need to argue harder. He simply reveals the inconsistency and watches the collapse. The weak argue with passion. The strong destroy with contradiction. It works in relationships too. A friend swears, "I'll always be there for you." Later, when they vanish in your time of need, you don't need to scream. All you have to say is, "But you said you'd always be there." The weight of their own promise crushes them more effectively than anger ever could. This is why contradiction is feared more than insult. An insult can be dismissed as opinion. Contradiction cannot. It is a mirror reflecting hypocrisy, and the reflection is undeniable. The liar is exposed not by attack, but by his own voice echoing back at him from the past. The poetic brutality of this tactic lies in its construction. A liar's prison is built from his own bricks. Every word he speaks becomes a stone. And when enough stones are gathered, the manipulator simply arranges them into a wall around him. No force is needed. No violence is required. The victim is trapped inside a fortress of his own design. This is why the wise speak sparingly. They know that careless promises, casual lies, and unguarded declarations are not forgotten by the predator's ear. They are stored, sharpened, and held in silence until the perfect moment arrives. And when that moment comes, the contradiction trap does not wound. It annihilates. There is a trap more dangerous than open conflict because it feels like harmony. It begins not with confrontation, but with agreement. A nod, a smile, a soft yes. And yet, that small word is a chain. Once spoken, it binds tighter with every repetition. This is the illusion of agreement, the psychological snare that turns willing participants into obedient followers. Psychologists call it commitment bias. Once a person says yes, even to something small, they feel pressure to remain consistent. To reverse their position later feels like weakness or betrayal, so they keep moving forward, even when the steps lead directly into a trap. This is how manipulators win. Not by force, but by guiding their victims step by step into a prison of their own agreements. It always begins with harmless questions. A salesman asks, "You want to save money, right?" Of course, the answer is yes. Then comes, "You'd like your family to be comfortable, wouldn't you?" Another yes. By the time the final question arrives, "So it makes sense to sign this contract today, doesn't it?" The victim feels compelled to agree again because they've already said yes to everything leading up to it. To say no now would feel inconsistent, even hypocritical. Politics thrives on this trap. A leader begins with, "Do you want safety for your children?" The crowd roars with yes. Then, "Shouldn't we protect our nation's future?" Yes again. Finally, the demand arrives, perhaps war, perhaps new laws, perhaps sacrifices of freedom. By then, the people are already entangled in their own commitment, and they obey willingly, believing it is still their choice. Relationships are no different. A partner might begin with soft agreements. "You love me, don't you?" "Yes." "You want me to be happy?" "Yes." Eventually, the weight of those yes is used to demand bigger sacrifices. The victim complies because to say no now feels like betraying the love they already confirmed. What began as affection becomes a silent form of control. The brilliance of the yes trap is that the manipulator does not need to impose force. The victim forges their own chains by repeating yes after yes. Each one seems harmless, even empowering, but together they form a cage. And by the time they realize it, they are already inside. This is why those who master the yes trap can enslave entire groups without them noticing. They never fight resistance head-on. They dissolve it through agreement, weaving obedience out of people's own words. The weak believe that saying yes is kindness. The strong know it is surrender. The lesson is brutal but clear. Guard your agreements. A single yes may feel like nothing, but enough of them will build a wall around your freedom. And once you are locked inside, escape requires breaking not someone else's will, but your own. The most unnerving weapon in psychological warfare is not rage, nor persuasion, nor even contradiction. It is silence. Not the empty silence of passivity, but the sharpened silence of a mirror. The trap that makes words echo back louder until their owner cannot bear the sound. This is the mirror trap. Repeating a fragment of someone's words, then withdrawing into silence, leaving them to wrestle with themselves. It begins simply. Someone says, "I'm not worried about it." You tilt your head. Repeat softly, "Not worried." Then nothing. The silence stretches. Most people cannot tolerate it. They rush to fill the void, adding detail, exposing doubts, revealing emotions they had sworn to keep hidden. In trying to prove the strength of their statement, they unravel it piece by piece, betraying the very truth they tried to conceal. Humans fear silence more than confrontation. A direct attack can be met with defense, but silence feels like a bottomless pit. We crave reassurance, reaction, acknowledgement. When silence offers none, we dig deeper into our own words, desperate to fill the gap. And the more we speak, the more we reveal. Interrogation rooms are built on this trap. An officer repeats a suspect's phrase, "You said you were at home?" and then lets silence stretch like a blade against the skin. The suspect squirms, adding details, correcting themselves, inventing excuses. Eventually, the silence extracts what no threat could. The prisoner convicts himself, not through force, but through his own tongue. Negotiations bend the same way. A skilled negotiator reflects a fragment. "That's your best offer?" and then retreats into silence. The rival grows uneasy, rushing to justify, to sweeten the deal, to explain why they deserve acceptance. The silence was not weakness, it was control, a vacuum that pulled the truth forward. Even in personal conflict, the mirror trap shatters defenses. A partner insists, "I don't care what you do." You echo gently, "You don't care." Silence. And within moments, the flood arrives. "Well, I do care about some things. I just wish you'd." The silence dragged out what the declaration tried to bury. Here lies the dark insight. Silence is not the absence of speech. It is an amplifier. It reflects words back so loudly that their owner cannot endure the echo. They scramble to explain, to soften, to correct, and in doing so, they hand over more than you ever asked for. The weak rush to fill silence because it terrifies them. The strong wield silence as a weapon, knowing it turns every word into a mirror. And in that mirror, people see not the image they wanted to project, but the truth they fought to hide. The mirror trap proves this brutal law. You don't need to attack someone's words to win. You only need to hold them in silence long enough for their own voice to destroy them. Every word is a weapon, but not because it carries truth. Words are powerful because they shape perception. And perception, not reality, governs human behavior. People do not follow what is real. They follow the story they believe is real. Whoever controls that story controls the battlefield. This is why arguments about truth rarely matter. The masses fight endlessly to prove themselves right, wasting their energy defending facts. But the strategist does not care about being right. He cares about being believed. His weapon is not accuracy, but influence. A lie told with precision can outlive the purest truth if it controls the narrative. Consider history. Leaders have risen and fallen not by the strength of their armies, but by the stories they told. A ruler can call a war an act of liberation, and people will fight with pride. A tyrant can rename oppression as order, and citizens will obey willingly. The sword forces obedience for a day. Words build obedience that lasts for generations. This is the battlefield of perception. Every sentence is a move, every phrase a weapon placed carefully to bend the minds of those who listen. It is not about what happened, it is about what can be made to seem like it happened. Perception does not follow truth. It follows dominance. The weak argue to win. They shout louder, stack evidence, and hope logic will prevail. But logic is fragile in the face of perception. A skilled manipulator plants one phrase, one label, one subtle suggestion, and the argument is already decided. He does not need to defeat facts, he only needs to shift how those facts are seen. This is why silence, contradiction, and echoes all build toward something greater: control of the narrative itself. If you can guide how others interpret reality, you don't need to fight them, they will fight themselves. Their own minds become the battlefield, and you are the unseen general. The dark philosophy is simple. Reality bends not to the strongest arm, but to the sharpest tongue. The fist can strike, but the tongue can redefine the meaning of that strike. Was it cruelty or justice? Weakness or sacrifice? The words decide. Perception is power because it governs every choice humans make. A crowd will burn cities for a belief, even if it is false. A lover will abandon reason for a story that feels true. A soldier will march into death not for reality, but for the perception of honor. In each case, words drew the map and people followed blindly. The strategist knows that the war for dominance is not waged on the ground, but in the mind. It is not truth that shapes destiny, it is perception. And on this battlefield, the greatest victory is not proving others wrong, but making them believe you were right all along. After all the traps, all the tactics, and all the strategies, one truth rises above the rest. Words can be weapons, but silence is the ultimate fortress. Speech reveals, exposes, leaks. Silence conceals, protects, and strengthens. To trap others with their own words is powerful, but to never be trapped by your own, that is mastery. This is the final paradox. To dominate through words, you must first conquer your tongue. The strategist understands restraint. He does not rush to explain, justify, or confess. He does not drown his strength in noise. His silence unsettles, intimidates, and creates space for others to collapse under their own speech. While the world argues loudly, he waits. And waiting is his advantage. Think of the lion. It roars to scare, to declare its presence. But when it hunts, it does not roar. It moves in silence, patient, precise, unseen until it is too late. Power is not in constant display. It is in selective release. The lion's silence kills more effectively than its voice ever could. So it is with us. The man who speaks endlessly becomes predictable, vulnerable, easy to trap. The one who controls his words becomes untouchable. His silence becomes a shadow, and in that shadow he builds strength. People project their fears, their assumptions, their truths onto his quietness, revealing themselves while he remains hidden. The final reflection is this: mastery is not about learning endless tricks. It is about building discipline so strong that no one can bait you into weakness. The echo, the contradiction, the yes trap, the mirror, these are weapons. But they are nothing if you cannot resist the urge to hand over your own ammunition. The shadow of silence is not emptiness. It is presence without exposure, power without waste, control without risk. It is the ground on which all psychological warfare rests. For only the silent man cannot be betrayed. Only the silent man cannot be cornered. Only the silent man decides when and if he will strike. Master the silence, and you will never again fear words. You will never again be trapped by promises, confessions, or careless slips. Instead, you will walk through conversations like a hunter through tall grass, calm, hidden, waiting. And when the moment comes, you will not need to roar. Your silence will already have won. Master the silence, and you'll never be trapped by words again. You'll only set the traps.